Hey, welcome back to my channel. So recently I decided to take my oil paints backpacking for the first time ever. We were going to climb Mount Langley, and so I decided to go backpacking with a really small travel kit of paints and just bring them up into the mountains to see what I could do. And as we were hiking up to the base camp area, there were just all of these beautiful trees. I was really appreciating the nature in the Sierras. It's just such a stunning area, and there are great trees, beautiful granite rocks. We were hiking through the forest in the beginning, and it was just really, really peaceful. The weather was great. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold, so good for painting. Not cloudy, no storms on the horizon, so that was really great. And we had just some really beautiful fall colors too. So in addition to the evergreens, there were some yellows and some oranges in the landscape. As we started hiking further up, as we got higher in altitude, the trees started getting a lot smaller, and we saw more and more granite peaks and the summit of Mount Langley. It was definitely tough carrying all of our gear up to the base camp area. And so I really tried to travel light and bring just the essentials for my oil painting kit. Definitely it started getting colder once we got higher up, but it was nice and sunny, and so once we set up camp, I was able to find a spot that would work really well for painting. I decided to focus on these big granite cliffs. I was really drawn to the way that the sun was hitting the granite and casting these really dramatic shadows, and also the really strong sense of reflected light on the rocks that was coming back from the light reflecting off of the other rocks. So even within the shadows, I was kind of thinking of what the Impressionist painters remarked, but how even in the shadows they felt very luminous and very bright. And so I decided that that's what I would try to capture. So for my setup, I kept it really light because I didn't want too much extra weight. And so I just brought a really small painting box, and I have 2 brushes, a panel and my panel carriers, my Gamsol in a jar which is off to the side, some rags for cleaning my brushes, and then also just 4 colors, so titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, and ultramarine blue. I started painting sort of in the late afternoon, so the sun was already a little low in the sky, and I knew that the shadows would be changing really quickly. And because I was packing really light, I didn't bring my tripod, so my filming was a little bit shaky, and I just balanced my painting box between my legs to try to keep it stable. But when I started the painting, as I usually do, I just lightly sketched out where I saw the major light and shadow shapes. And this is what I do for most of my paintings, but especially when I'm painting later in the day and I know the light is going to be moving so fast, and the shadows are going to be changing really fast. The first thing I think to do is mark down where are my light and shadow shapes, and then I can start filling in the color notes later, because even if the shadows shift a little bit, usually the colors won't change too much. So once I've sketched in the basic areas where light and shadow are, then I start filling in some of those shadow shapes. And here, it's kind of hard to tell what the shadow is. It's a really cool gray. So I mix this kind of grayish purpley color, which I think is going to contrast really nicely with the warm yellow color in the parts of the granite that are getting hit by the sunlight. So I'm just laying in a thin layer of this grayish purpley color, keeping it really thin in this shadow here, so keeping the paint kind of transparent. And then I'll make it a lot thicker in the areas that are light. And I like how a little bit of the surface that I'm painting on is showing through. So I've already toned the panel with this kind of brown, I think it's like a raw umber tone, so it's very neutral. But it's nice because if I don't cover the whole panel, some of that natural brown color is showing through. And as I'm painting, I'm really thinking, like, one of the hard parts is with the rocks, there are so many little details and so many little shadows everywhere. So I'm trying to simplify that a lot and figure out where are the main shadow shapes that are really interesting that I want to capture. And once I lay in that purple layer, that sort of transparent purple, I go in with a little bit more opaque bluish purple. I was noticing that there were some more blues in the shadow areas that I wanted to pick up on. And it's that really beautiful blue when the rock is not getting hit by direct sunlight, but instead it's reflecting the blue of the sky. And I just love that. And you see it, on days when it's just really bright and sunny. So I just find that color so beautiful. So I'm just trying to add some of that here. And then I add in the sky pretty quickly. The sky was really deep blue, and I wanted to keep it kind of dark in value just to make the rocks really pop when they're getting hit by the sun. By the time I put in the shadow areas and the sky, the shadows were already moving so quickly. The sun was already getting really low in the sky. So then I pretty much rushed to fill in the parts of the rock that were getting hit by the light. So I didn't have much time left. So this is the final outcome, how the painting turned out. And overall, I'm really happy with it. I was super excited to be painting in the backcountry when I was, going backpacking, bringing my paints out. It was something like that I'd never done before, which was really exciting. And I really liked what I was able to capture, getting that sense of light on the rocks up high in the Sierras. I think another thing that was really beautiful was just how luminous everything was. And one thing that I really wanted to convey was the complexity of the shadows, which had these darker blue and purple notes in them, but they also had these warmer notes of color from the light that was being reflected from other parts of the granite getting hit by the light, that was then reflecting into the shadows, giving them some additional warmth and depth. So here I tried to increase the depth of my shadows and really highlight that and leave the highlighted parts a little bit more blown out. So overall, I'm really happy with how the painting turned out, and it was just such a beautiful experience to be painting out in the wilderness and in such a peaceful and beautiful environment. And then before we knew it, it was time to go back home. But I left the experience just feeling really excited and looking forward to bringing my paints on my next backpacking trip. Anyway, that's all I have for this one. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments. And as always, a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for making these videos happen. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.